Hi everyone, I'm Natalia. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm hoping to share with you a rich discussion. I feel like this is a very rich conversation, and I would love for a lot of you to engage in this discussion because I think it is a very interesting one. And I think that it is one of those discussions where each one of us is going to have their own point of view, their own perspective, their own opinion, their own angle. This discussion about whether collecting tarot decks is analogous to having a bookshelf full of books started by me mentioning this conversation in my latest vlog, where I cited one of the comments that I got on this topic and where I shared that for me, it is very much the same thing. And one of you have shared your perspective. First of all, I want to thank you for sharing your perspective, not only in a really, really mindful, and what I mean by that, by critical discourse versus any other non-critical discourse way, but you also mindfully elaborated why you disagreed. And I thought that was really interesting because for me, it got my brain spinning. I thought about what you had to say. And one of the things you shared is that you think that there's a huge difference. Well, huge is far-fetched. You said there is a difference between collecting books versus collecting tarot because you're not going to buy the main difference that you felt nobody's talking about is that not everybody, people are not going to buy the same book. Versus tarot, whether it's Rider-Waite-Smith, Marseille, or Soos, people tend to buy the rendition of them again and again and again. The only thing that makes it different is the artwork. Other than that, it's the same system that they keep buying and displaying on their bookshelves, hence the difference. And I think that's really interesting. So I want to talk about it. I want to share my point of view. I want to start off by saying that this is the way I see it. This is my angle. This is not a way, the right way. There's no such thing. So keep in mind, this is solely how I view this idea of collecting tarot being similar to collecting books. I do encourage you, if you feel differently, if you feel the same, if you feel you can add something to the discussion, feel free to comment below. I encourage you to do video response if you have a channel, because it is an interesting conversation. And I think by hearing what others have to share, what I'm assuming we're going to come to is a perspective, a widening perspective on this discussion. And it's always good to have widening perspective on discussion because it helps us all, at least it helps me, see how all of us are different. And that's a good thing. So is collecting tarot decks and having them, imagine that artificial shelf behind me was full of tarot decks. Is it the same thing as having a shelf full of books? And when this person commented, I responded back by saying that that's not how I feel. For me, the art is precisely what makes a huge difference. And I thought about it more. And I spent some time thinking about this. And I talked to my husband, who is a huge book collector and is not into tarot at all, to see if I can elicit a different perspective. And him and I had a great discussion. So one of the things that I came to realize, here's an example of volume 2 of Dostoevsky in Russian. It smells fantastic. One of the things I came to realize is this. A library filled with books, your personal home library, your bookshelf filled with library of books. What unites all of those books, what's underlying all of those books, is language. Language is what really drives the way the story is written. So, for example, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Language is utilized to express the story of crime and punishment. And unless you are versed in other languages and you would like to read a rendition of Dostoevsky in, I have a Russian copy, I have an English copy, which I find translation to be a little bit off, which is interesting for me. Unless you can do that, chances are any other versions of Dostoevsky more or less are going to be the same because they're all unified by the same storytelling using the same language. So I understand why somebody's not going to go out there and buy 20 copies of Dostoevsky, 20 different translations of Dostoevsky, although one obviously can, but the story is still going to be the same, right? The language is still going to be the same. Tarot, on the other hand, what unifies, what is the language of the tarot? The language of the tarot is, in my opinion, is its foundational meanings, its foundational structure. 78 cards, majors, minors, court cards, foundational meanings of from Fool all the way to the World, foundational meaning from One of Cups all the way to 10 of Cups. The tarot language is undeniably, in my opinion, its foundational meaning. The artwork is the way each artist who creates a tarot deck is able to tell a story of the tarot using its language. And that's, in my opinion, what makes a tremendous difference. And the reason why it makes a big difference for me is because when I draw a hermit card, the unifying language is its foundational meaning. Looking within, going inwards, inner insight. However, the way the artist used the artwork shifts, for me, the foundational meaning of this language, of the story. For example, Hermit with Lantern, for me, what comes to me is illumination. Tierra Mace Ritual Tarot, Hermit, with big emphasis on the red brain. For me now, what I'm projecting and associating to this Hermit is going within and utilizing your mental capacities to self-reflect. Still illumination, but now I'm seeing something different. Hermit from Serpent of Icons Tarot is very much a witchy hermit, in my opinion, and very connected to the other world, very connected also to not only to witchcraft, but very connected to the woods. So now I'm thinking about Hermit as my relationship, not only to my inner world, but my relationship to a ritual, my relationship to a spiritual practice, my relationship to other beings. Hermit, there's a sacred journey, majors only. Despair, sleeping right here, hibernating in a cave, doesn't tell me that I need to actively go in and seek and think things through, nor that I'm actively illuminating something. This hermit, for me, shows me that it's time to rest and time to really sit in quiet. Sometimes when we rest and when we isolate, we have an opportunity to see things more clearly. Now, one can say they all illuminate. And sure, for you, it may be they all illuminate, but for me, now the illumination is a different type of illumination. Another example is Three of Swords. This Three of Swords, right? When I look at this Three of Swords, I can't help but focus on the shattered lotus flower in the middle and the shards of what looks like sharp glass on the background. To me, this makes me think of a pain that can not only happen within one's mind, but the pain that can be inflicted. Three of Swords, Ritual Tarot by Tierra May. Two swords, and then a person is holding a third sword. Now I'm thinking about the pain not only that can be inflicted by outside energies onto us, but the pain that we inflict onto ourselves. Pair of Crown, Three of Swords. The keyword for this one is inspiration. Now I'm thinking about how can I creatively think about the situation differently. Again, the same, right? The language of the Three of Swords is the same, but the way the story of this language is being told by using the art, for me, is different. Jessica Zinchu's Animal Woman deck, Three of Swords, and it says, not afraid to express my grief. So now this is about allowing yourself to feel that pain and go a step further and express it. Like I pointed out to the person that, again, for me, it is the art used to express this language that makes all of the difference. Because if I see a magician depicted as a cat versus magician depicted as a dog, I have personally different association to what a cat is versus a dog. I see a cat, I think, oh, this is a very independent magician. This is very independent utilization of my resources. So the artwork informs the way I see the archetype. It takes me hands on a different path. When I see a dog, the keyword that comes to mind is obedience. So I think, wow, this is maybe it's time for me to step into magician archetype, but play by the rules. Be more obedient. So do you see how the same archetype, the same language of magician is being conformed for me differently, simply by the way the creator decided to illustrate it? And that's why for me, having different decks with different artwork makes all of the difference, because they all takes that's the same language of the archetype in a different direction. That's a beautiful thing about tarot, is that it can be the language, the foundational meaning of tarot can be illustrated in a gazillion of ways. And there's no way to reach a limit. That's an absolute beauty of it. Crime and punishment can be translated in different languages, and each translation may have some slight off things, because there might be some emerysms that are going to be lost, maybe some things that are going to be lost in translation, but the story nonetheless is going to be the same. Now, I understand that I read tarot first and foremost psychologically, meaning I project my associations on the art that I see, and only then do I apply foundational meanings of the tarot. And for you, it might be different. You might actually only stick to foundational meaning. So for you, the fact that each deck is illustrated differently is just visually something that stimulates you and makes it fun versus having the same deck. One can also say that all you need is just one deck, and working with one deck, as you evolve and change, your experience and relationship to this particular archetype changes too. And that is true too. I don't think that for me, there's one right way, right? For me, I'm a person who needs access to seeing tarot through different artistic renditions, because it busts me open to think about it differently. Some people don't need that. You might be one of those people. Just like books, right? Some people feel like they need to have or keep every book they read. Some people feel like they don't need it because it's all in their headspace. Some people feel like they want to display their books and feel like they don't need to. Some people prefer even books on electronic devices. We're all different. And so is this. Now, this also doesn't mean that this is not a spiel to justify any kind of consumerism or terror accumulation. This is simply me sharing with you my relationship and how, for me, when I have a bookshelf behind this bookshelf, a real bookshelf, with all of my tarot decks. For me, they all are different. I don't see at them, when I look at them, my initial response is not, oh, they're all rendition of those. which is my favorite deck, I look at it and I think they all tell their own language of their story differently. I would love to hear what are your thoughts. I would love to hear what do you think about this? I would love to hear whether you think that collecting or having multiple tarot decks is analogous to having multiple books. I think it is analogous, and yet it's not to me, right? It's different. It's a different type of collection. It's a different type of relationship. To me, the comparison is unified in the sense that books help me personally understand not only my inner world, but the world of others. Tarot helps me more than anything understand the inner world of myself. And as such, both books and tarot decks to me are tools toward my personal self enlightenment, self growth. And for that reason, I think that displaying tarot decks is, at least in that little scope, similar to displaying books. So let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think about this? I think it's really fascinating discussion because I really do think that each one of you is going to feel differently. And each one of you is going to have a take on this very differently. And I would love to hear your take on it. So comment below, or if you'd like to do a video response, feel free to do video response. But yeah, share what your thoughts are on this perspective of tarot decks being similar to collecting books in the sense that they offer, well, at least for me, they offer the same thing. So do comment below, and I hope you enjoy this discussion, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.